Geospatial technologies are enabling many innovations that are changing the ways businesses operate and are creating new business opportunities. The rapid proliferation of connected and automated vehicles, drones, robots, mega satellite constellations, 5G communications, and other advances are leading to the emergence of a hyper-connected future, enabled by an Internet of Things consisting of location-aware devices and connected devices. A product and data-centric industry has transformed itself into a solutions and services-oriented industry in less than a decade, extending its relevance and value in mainstream economy and society. Let's hear out how the innovators of the industry has made possible the agility to apply and exploit the new opportunities by innovations emerging from the applications of geospatial technologies.
Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? Hey! This panel is about innovation, so it should be very, very exciting. And it's also a glimpse of the entire conference. We have two amazing panelists with us, so I'm going to invite them to the stage, and then we can do some introductions. Does that work? So Hannah and Abhilasha, please join us. Thank you so much. So before I let our amazing ladies introduce themselves and what they do and what their innovation is all about and how they're making impact, I have a question for you. Since we talk about innovation and it's a big buzzword, does anybody else like me feel that as geospatial people we have been ahead of our times for a long time and that the world is finally catching up to us? Right? So whether the things we can do from space or the things that we can do with tabular data, once you know you can correlate it with location, I feel like we've seen this, we've known this for, 20 plus years, and now finally the aha moment is out there. So I have another question for you. I'm Nadine. I didn't introduce myself. So I'm Nadine Alameh. I'm the CEO of the Open Geospatial Consortium. And anybody is wondering, why is the CEO of a standards organization doing an innovation panel? Be honest. So this is my favorite part of geospatial. There's this concept of ecosystem, and I think you'll hear about it a lot also during this conference. But this whole idea, when I look, for example, at the work we do in OGC, at the end of the day, our geospatial power, this expertise in space and time and in connecting not just the systems and the organizations and the data, but actually also the people. This whole power essentially enables us to do some pretty impactful collective problem solving. And I think that's what we're doing here. And so why I'm here? Because if we want to do some serious problem solving for some serious challenges, and you're going to hear a lot about this, we're talking about climate change, we're talking about disaster response or prediction or mitigation, we're talking about infrastructure, we're talking about public safety, I can go on. Serious problems require collective problem solving. And when we do this collective problem solving, and as geospatial people, you know this, we cross industries and boundaries of countries and disciplines. So it's interdisciplinary by just the definition of it. And that's why we need the standards. So the standards are the glue, and the innovation comes together with those standards, with the bright people, with the real pressing problems. And this is how we can create the impact together. So my favorite part actually today is that our two panelists, I did not know them before this event. So again, it's a great way to meet new people, but also it excites me because this is how I know that they're truly, truly innovating. Like, oh my God, you're doing this how, where? Let's get started with Hannah. So Hannah, do you want to introduce yourself and your company and the innovation? Please, you have a video to play?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you could put up my presentation, please. That's the last slide. Could we have the first? Yeah, I'm really honored to be here, quite excited. I will give you a small glimpse about what PlanBlue is doing, and also how PlanBlue fills the data gap for space and bathymetric data. Our data feeds in 9 sustainability goals. My name is Hannah. I'm one of 4 founders from PlanBlue. So nowadays, it's super amazing what we have for high-resolution data of the Earth's surface. I mean, I saw some slides this morning about presentation about digital cities. It was absolutely mind-blowing for me. But we do miss a very big part of our planet where high-resolution data is necessary. And this is the ocean, the seafloor. It covers the 2/3 of our planet. And we have absolutely no good high-resolution data with regard to biodiversity, for example. And this is a big problem because we face global threats such as climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollutions. My slides are not working. I missed already the third. Perfect. So one note, why is the seafloor so important? So first of all, the seafloor mirrors how healthy the ocean is above. And also 98% of all marine life are dependent on it. But also for us, it's very important. It's a food source, a job provider, and also what we forget very often, a climate regulator. So PlanBlue developed the first underwater satellite to fill the data gap of bathymetric and space data and provide high detail. We can highlight features and pop up the seafloor with different applications for multiple use cases. So what we do is we combine advanced imaging with AI and underwater navigation. So I brought you an example here of how powerful this kind of data is and what you can do with it. And the example here is blue carbon credit. The seafloor is 20 times more efficient in capturing CO2 than on land. So it's really important that we enable the entire industry, which is already evolving, and the bottleneck is at the moment that we do not have a standardized certificate way to do blue carbon credit. And now you can see what we can do with our kind of data. We can extract different information, and then, in the end, we can even say how healthy seagrass is, and that leads us to that we can actually calculate how much CO2 is captured. I mean, there's many more applications, and I'm very happy to talk in the next break about it. So we are very open for partnerships and collaboration. We want to find partners where we can fill the data gap for bathymetric and space data. And we also would like to combine our technologies with robotic. At the moment, it's operated by divers, but it's already ready to go to be replaced, so the diver can be replaced by robotics. So yeah, and I'm very much looking forward to our discussion in a second.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes. When did you found your company? How long have you been doing this?
2017, we founded the company.
2017. Cool. Show of hands. First time you hear of PlanBlue? Yeah. Great. See?
What?
That's impact already. And out of this room, it will multiply. So I find it very interesting that we have two companies, PlanBlue and then Blue Sky Analytics. There must be a theme. So Abhilasha, do you want to introduce yourself and your company, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much, Nadine, and thanks, Hannah, for setting up the stage. So my name is Abhilasha. You can call me Abby. I run Blue Sky Analytics, and we started in 2019, so it's been a very quick 3 years. And now we are 30 people spread across 3 continents, completely remote organization, so very different from the traditional setup of AI or geospatial or technology companies. We don't have offices, and we don't believe in cities, and very young also. Our entire team would be in the age span of 20 to 30, which will be also a huge contrast to the traditional organizations. We also are, in a way, environmentalist. So I myself am an environmental management graduate, and I find myself amongst all the people talking space and satellites, and which is exciting. But I think one of the major applications of space, and for the first satellites, was Earth observation to be able to understand our planet. We actually discovered most of the climate change through satellites. Back in 1950s and 60s and 70s, a lot of massive change was observed by scientists, which led to the research and the concrete body of climate change that we have today. Then telecommunications happened, and that picked up as a major business in satellites and space tech. But I think Earth observation is going to come back, especially with Blue Sky, PlanBlue, and many other companies in this segment. We single-handedly, or sole focus is on single challenge, which is, I think, the most critical challenge facing us, which is climate change. Everything from biodiversity, pollution, global warming, environmental degradation is sort of wrapped into this larger challenge of climate change, whereby we have 419 ppm of carbon concentration in our atmosphere for the very first time. We've oscillated between 200 to 300. I'm going to go very quickly from here on what we do and how does space work for us. But okay, let's skip this. So there's a whole opportunity in climate risk, sustainable finance, ESG, net zero, carbon markets, all these fancy words that you guys hear about. The biggest problem is nobody has data on it. There is very, very limited understanding of flood models, latest data on how much flooding is happening, on wildfires, on pollution, by pretty much most of the companies around the world. We do have a lot of sort of data for weather. That is also specifically more in US or Europe. It is also relatively less available for other parts of the world. But when we talk about forest monitoring, or water monitoring, or lakes or rivers, we really have a huge data cap. And that is where I think companies like Blue Sky come in, and that's where Earth observation and satellite data and remote sensing comes in, that we have these terabytes of data that satellites have collected historically for the last 20, 30, 50 years, but we haven't truly mined it, and we haven't truly organized it to be able to present it to the people who need it, which is now banks, insurers, governments, municipalities, journalists, and actually a lay person. Just imagine if we could know what is water quality in the, I think, canal or the river or the ocean outside of Tates, if we had some understanding, if we knew how that water quality changed over the last 10 years, how powerful of information that would be for us. And that is exactly what we do at Blue Sky. We take a lot of satellite data and other data sets, and we solely purpose it for understanding our climate. We call what we're building as a Bloomberg for environmental data. That makes it very easy to explain. And we cover historical data, real-time data, and near predictions, and also a little more 5 to 10-year predictions based on different carbon pathways, on things like how bad is extreme heat going to get. I'm coming from India, where we observed, I think, 60 degrees Celsius of surface temperature and 50 degrees Celsius of air temperature. And the biggest or the worst heat wave is grappling India and Pakistan. And the worst drought in 800 years is grappling United States at the moment. one of the very simple processes how many of our customers work with us is they're able to give us their asset locations, so latitude and longitudes of large real estate asset or a company or a factory that they have or a forest location that they have. And we are able to provide a whole sequence of climate and environmental related data to them through a single platform, which we call Spacetime. And you can actually go on your devices or your computers and just write Spacetime in Blue Sky, and you will get a link and go and play around with that, I think. You would be able to visit how many wildfires are happening at the moment today, how many happened yesterday, and how much was carbon emissions from each of them. And we will be building on more into that catalog. The industries that we serve are pretty extensive. However, I would say that as a young startup, the major industries that we are focusing right now is a lot of carbon markets and asset managers. Some of the use cases, and very quickly. Oh, this was my favorite slide. So this is Spacetime, our platform, in which we're able to go from global level of data coverage to national level, state level, all the way down to an asset level. What you see there is a power plant, and we can monitor pollution and air pollution, carbon emissions, water pollution, heat from that particular power plant. Going further, you can also, okay, I'm not able to completely control this. And we have been recognized by a bunch of awards and everything. But I think awards and recognition don't really matter in the larger scheme of things, where you're really focusing on the impact and on solving the problem that we face, which is much larger, which is a problem of climate change and problem of just being able to survive on this planet for a little longer than the odds say as of now. I would be really excited to go for the discussion further and talk about innovation and how we have got to this place.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Thank you. And also a show of hands, how many people, this is their first time hearing about Blue Sky Analytics? How many people are eager to try that dashboard now? I'd like to also, actually, what we find we want is, this is the number of wildfires today. What happens if it triples in the next year, 2 years, 5 years?
That is precisely what we do, which is what would happen under different carbon pathways. If we go to 1.5 degrees of warming or 2 degrees of warming, what would be the intensity and frequency of these wildfires?
Cool. All right. So I like this panel a lot because sometimes I say the part that's better than the panel is what happens, in the backstage when we're preparing or afterwards, because it turned into, there's a diversity conversation, there's a rising stars conversation, there's space, there's AI, so there's a technology, and it's always coming back to climate as well. So this panel is like everything, and I think all the panels are everything at the same time. So I'm going to ask a simple, and simple doesn't mean easy, question. And it's 2 and 1 because we're running out of time. So what is making your job and your innovation easy to make an impact? And what is hard about it? What's the hardest part of your experience so far? Hannah, do you want to?
Oh, sure. So I think as a young startup, or also you being one of the leading companies of the world in the geospatial world, need to make choices. And our choice was to establish an ethic code. So our data, we do not want to provide to people to exploit the ocean. That means we do not look for resources. And I think we saw this morning how powerful geospatial data is and what we can do, and that we can drive decision making on various levels, like the consumer until the government. But it's very important that we make choices. Like we are in such a situation at the moment. I don't know if you heard about the IPCC report. It was a bit mixed up with the war, but it stated that we need to do something in this decade. That means in this next 10 years, we have to really act in a way which really is changing our behavior on the planet. So we really run out of time. And therefore, I think it's very important, also on a company level, that you have an ethic code. And if you ask yourself, can you afford it? Then I think yes, because it will cost you, but I think on the long run, it will benefit, not just in the sense of SDGs, but also for your business. Because restoring resources will ultimately mean that there is more money saved on the long run.
Great. So you just added one more theme to this panel, which is ethical, responsible use of the information. Abby, from your perspective, please.
Can you please repeat the question again?
Yes, because it's two questions in one.
Yeah.
What's the easiest part
And what's the most
of
tricky
getting
part?
your innovation to market, perhaps, or explaining what you're doing, and what's the challenging part?
I think when you got there, you just first said that you've been noticing these same waves for the last 20 years. You guys have been seeing that the technologies that we have today, and it's a aha moment. And I think even for us, like the kind of things we do, leveraging cloud and AI and APIs and the whole infrastructure around geospatial in such a large way to be able to build this kind of data catalog, that's been sort of relatively easy part. I think technology has really come to the place where we can build what we want to build and provide it to the customers and build a very strong value proposition of both revenue and impact out of it. I'm always like, you can make a lot of revenue when you make a lot of impact. It's kind of like Google. I was just discussing that first time I came to Europe in 2010, there was very limited Google Maps. Google Maps was like space-time right now, pretty minimal. And I used to get lost in Ireland all the time. And now, 12 years later, you always have Google Maps with you, so you're never lost. And that's the technology value proposition. It's helped billions of people, and it also creates billions of dollars into revenue. So that's the easy part, I think. The tricky part is, I would say, a lot of like human biases around both solving large problems and around sort of investing in new technologies. I think inertia really kicks in. And we like to believe and do things that we have been doing for many years, whether it's like, trusting older companies or, going to the repeat client as an older company versus a new company. That's where inertia kicks in. Also within solving climate change and sustainability and all of those challenges, if we know that, let's say, plastic bottles are really bad for environment, but it's inertia which really kicks in and convenience that kicks in. So trying to get over inertia and actually cause disruption in the human decision-making, in the human behavior, that is a very hard part. I think technology is easy and people are difficult.
Yes, these are the people. So we're running out of time, but I want to leave you with one more challenge. And we went totally off course from the prepared questions. So very quickly, you have an audience here. What's the one thing you want to actually get as impactful as possible with your innovation? If there was one thing, just say the word, because they're listening.
Oh gosh. I think, so one thing for us, so we have built almost, I would say, 3 to 5% of what we want to build in the next 3 to 5 years. So 95 is remaining. And that 95 does require a lot of investment in terms of both like human investment, emotional investment, monetary investment. Your attention, your time, the conversations that you have. You go on my website and click it. You check out the platform. All of that is investment. And I think that emotional, mental investment, along with monetary investment, is what we want so we can bring in really high resolution environment and climate data to everybody. Thanks.
You got it. Hannah? What's the one thing you want?
For the community, I wish for the world for lasting impact and that everybody takes it serious because there's so much power in the room here. So that would be a really big wish, and come up with innovations and see how to fill data gaps which we could provide, for example, with PlanBlue.
Thank you so much. Thank you for also spending your time with us here. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Abby.
Thanks,
and thank you, Geospatial World. Thank you.